to celebrate Women's Month. MEC for Health, Sasekane Manzini, says out of 60,000 women that were screened in the province last month, 140 of them had cervical cancer. Manzini says screening services are provided for women in rural clinics and hospitals where oncology units are not available.
Our people, they don't know the simple thing in terms of checking yourself even before you are being checked at the hospital. So we want to educate our people in terms of the symptoms and also the numbers themselves. It shows that we can even get more people, but we can only get more people if they come. So we are taking the services to our nearest clinics so that they can, it's a walking distance to your nearest clinic.
And finally, further afield, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says now is probably the best and last chance to reach a ceasefire deal in Gaza and bring hostages back to Israel. He made the remark as he met the Israeli President Isaac Herzog in Tel Aviv. Blinken is expected to hold talks with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later today. Blinken says it's time for everyone to say yes to a deal without excuses.
It's also time to make sure that no one takes any steps that could derail this process. And so we're working to make sure that there is no escalation, that there are no provocations, that there are no actions that in any way could move us away from getting this deal over the line, or, for that matter, escalating the conflict to other places and to greater intensity.
Recapping the top story, the expelled founding member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, Jabulani Khumalo, has opened a fraud case against former President Jacob Zuma. For SAFM News, I'm Utsile Saku. I'll be back with headlines at 1:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide, leading the conversation.
Everyone is just as important as you are. Stop gender-based violence. Treat others the way you want to be treated. No one deserves any form of violence. Report gender-based violence. Contact Lifeline South Africa toll-free number on your mobile phone. Call or WhatsApp 0800 150 150. That's 0800 150 150. Lifeline South Africa. Mental and emotional health for all. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Oh, this is close! Simbine and the South Africans finally get a medal with the silver, and at last, Akani Simbine is an Olympic medalist. I'm really pleased for Simbine.
Everyone has been wishing for a medal for me, and I've got my medal now. I'm really happy with getting the medal.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Uzobuya na maswede tulam tuana tulu mama uzobuya na maswede tulam.
It is the incomparable Brenda Mdambo, and that is how we open up the show today. So we were trying to decipher, because I actually haven't been in conversation with Brenda in quite a while, since last year sometime, and I know that she's got a brand new album, and so we're trying to decipher with my team if it's more sane or it's more sane. But I'm sure if you're a diehard fan, you will let us know on WhatsApp which is which. So she is to be performing. She's to grace Cape Town with a one night only performance, and this is in celebration, of course, of three studio albums and a decade-long solo career. And she's set to be performing at the Star Theatre. That was Brenda Mdambo with Tembanjalo. That is how we kick off the show on this Monday afternoon. I hope that you had a wonderful, restful weekend and you are ready to hit the week running at full speed. We've got lots on the agenda today. We're going to be unpacking a study that has found increasing prevalence of cannabis use in adolescents that were admitted with mental illness. We want to find out what is the correlation there. And does it speak directly to cannabis use? And then we also are going to be looking at ways that businesses can support young entrepreneurs in an evolving work environment. It is Monday after all, so we like to have entrepreneurial conversations on a Monday. On the other side of 2 o'clock, whilst we're still on that entrepreneurial sort of career focus, building psychologically safe spaces in the workplace, primarily for women in leadership. We're going to explore that conversation on the other side of 2, and I'll tell you what else is coming up on the other side of 2 closer to the time. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on if you want to have a live conversation and contribute to the topics today, or 061 410 4107 is the WhatsApp line that you can send us a WhatsApp voice note to. Let's take a quick break here.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga. Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So we're going to be unpacking the contents of a study that was published in the South African Journal of Psychiatry. This study looked at the increasing prevalence of cannabis use in adolescents that were admitted with mental illness. And joining us in conversation now is Dr. Michelle Schwartz, who is a specialist psychiatrist. And of course, this study was part of her Master's in Medicine in Psychiatry at the University of Cape Town. How are you doing, Dr. Michelle? You good?
Hi, Bridget. Thank you for having me. I am good. Thank you. And how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Cannot complain. So cannabis is widely used. It's a widely used, socially accepted substance worldwide. A lot of people advocate for its safety, for it's sort of minimal, I guess, harms and consequence. And you embarked on a study as part of your master's. Firstly, maybe let's get an understanding, what was the point of research for you going into this study, and then we'll get into what were some of the outcomes.
Okay, so the point of the study, as you mentioned earlier, it was part of my master's in medicine in psychiatry. And at the time of doing this was in my specialization in psychiatry, I was seeing a lot of adolescents admitted into the unit in which I was working, and a lot of those adolescents used cannabis. And that got myself and my supervisor thinking about the legislative changes in South Africa and what impact that played on our adolescents and the admissions for these adolescents with mental illness. And that's where the study came in, where we looked at admissions into the unit for adolescents prior to the decriminalization in Western Cape, and the High Court made that ruling in 2017, and we looked at it afterwards. And we just compared the two and wanted to see what impact that could have had on the admissions and on the adolescents we were seeing.
And in terms of the impact, so walk us through what you were observing, sort of in practical practice, and then, of course, what the study then unearthed by way of the data that came out of it.
Okay, so on a practical level, we were seeing adolescents come in, we were seeing adolescents that were using cannabis, and obviously when we admit into our unit, into a hospital setting, they have mental illness, they require admission. And when we were looking at what the attitudes about cannabis were, our adolescents saw it as being harmless. They found that it was quite accepted, and they weren't aware of what the law was, and what the changes was, and what that meant for them. They just found it as being harmless and something that was completely fine. And so that's obviously what led to the study.
And by way of then the study, so unpack for us. What were some of the findings from the study?
Okay, so what we found in the study was, firstly, we found that the number of adolescents admitted into the unit overall increased. So that was adolescents that used cannabis as well as adolescents that didn't use cannabis. But in addition to that, we did find that there was an increased prevalence in these adolescents, we can call them teenagers, that used cannabis after the ruling. So we looked at 2 years before, which was 2015 to 2017, and then 2017 to 2019. And we did find a 3.7% increase in the prevalence of teenagers that used cannabis. And so for us, that was quite significant. And in addition to that, other things that we found was a gender difference. So prior to the ruling, most of the or majority of the adolescents we admitted, it was quite a high percentage of males, and that changed after the ruling when we saw more and more females getting admitted. But in addition to that, also more and more female adolescents using cannabis as well. So that was also one of the other findings that was significant.
And what made these sort of significance? What can you infer from the increase in sort of the prevalence of teenagers admitted, and of course the increase of the female patients as well?
So, look, what legislative changes, obviously changes in the legislation, impacts society, it impacts the way people view things, and with adolescents, not understanding of their perception is just that it's harmless, not understanding what it could possibly mean for them. So what we took from that, and we also looked at what the changes were in other countries, what the legislation meant there. So for example, if we looked at other studies, for example, the Canadian study, they also looked at the trends in use across the legislation. And what they found is that the year after the legislative changes there, they also found that there was an increased use that took place. So we found that was significant. With regards to the females, and there being more females using, so we looked at the World Drug Report, and what the World Drug Report says is that there's a gender difference occurring for cannabis over time. So the attitudes about cannabis have changed. Previously, there used to be more males using, and now the gender difference is changing. And look, in terms of gender roles, society and culture, they define gender roles, and that is changing over time, and that influences how people use substances when they decide to start substances, and obviously leading to substance use disorders, and specifically in this case, cannabis use disorders.
Yeah. Dr. Michelle, I just want to see if we can change you to a crisper line quickly on WhatsApp, but our conversation does continue in 086 000 2032 and 06141041007. If you're listening to us, we are in conversation with Dr. Michelle Schwartz, who is a specialist psychiatrist, and she undertook the study as part of her master's with the University of Cape Town, looking at how the increased prevalence of cannabis use in adolescents with admitted mental illnesses, and we'll still yet to unpack sort of the direct correlation between cannabis and what they observed by way of the mental illnesses, if there were any direct links right there. This is always a polarizing conversation, because it just depends on which side of the cannabis lines and the cannabis debate you sit on. There are pro-cannabis activists who solely believe that it is a harmless drug, whether it's for medicinal, harmless drug, recreationally, if you're using it recreationally, socially acceptable. There are societies that have had, of course, pro-cannabis laws, and open use is more than permissible in some societies. There are folks who argue for it from a medicinal perspective. They talk about medicinal cannabis and the benefits thereof. So it just depends. And then there are people who strongly believe that it is a gateway drug to other things, and it might have adverse effects. And somewhere in the middle is the conversation that happens about whether or not we understand cannabis, and we understand the toxicities of drugs holistically and fully, but that is way outside of the preserve of my knowledge. But it's always an interesting conversation, because whichever way you talk about cannabis, it's bound to elicit some kind of commentary. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 06141041007 is our WhatsApp line, as we try and get her on a slightly different line, just a slightly better line. I'm just hearing some crackle in that line, and we're hoping to get a better line. Let's take a quick pause, and then we'll be right back.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Let's take it one step at a time. You've probably used the word illegal 5 times. I mean, how do you know they're illegal in terms of illegal nationals as opposed to illegal doing illegal work?
Well, I can tell you, Ashraf, I wasn't born yesterday. I know the laws of this country. No one can operate businesses after from one house. It's a normal residential house. The following day, it's turned into a commercial enterprise with building in a place where used to be one house. All of a sudden, it's 20 rooms. There's no way that can be legal. I don't need any legal person to tell me that it's an illegal activity.
Herman Mashaba, the leader of Action SA.
The National Pulse Weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Our conversation continues with Dr. Michelle Schwartz, and we're looking at a study that she undertook as part of her master's with the University of Cape Town. And in this study with the University of Cape Town's Department of Psychiatry and Mental Health, they found the prevalence of cannabis use in adolescents admitted with mental illness increased after the South African High Court ruling in 2017 to decriminalize cannabis. And those who are pro-cannabis, Dr. Michelle, and there's a lot of, pro-cannabis activists out there. Those who are pro-cannabis will say, does the study show a connection, a direct connection between the use of cannabis and what you found by way of increased mental health admittance in your hospitals and practices?
So our study did find that, and remember our study is specifically about adolescents. And the adolescents that we're speaking about in our study are between the ages of 13 to 18. And those that used cannabis, the most common psychiatric disorders that were diagnosed in these adolescents were psychotic disorders and cannabis use disorders. So there we do find the direct correlation.
All right.
And it's important to remember that, I just want to touch on this point, that when we think of adolescence, we have to remember that adolescence is such a key phase of human development. The brain is developing. And there's been a lot of studies done over the years, and there's increasing evidence that does show an association between adolescents that use cannabis regularly and them having more severe or negative outcomes.
Okay. All right. Let's take a pause here for the headline news, then we'll come back and continue our conversation on the other side of the headlines.
Thank you, Bridget. Good afternoon. I'm Utilisaku with your news headlines at 1:30. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has confirmed that a member of the Presidential Protection Unit whose vehicle was involved in a hit and run on Friday has committed suicide this morning. The expelled founding member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, Jabulani Khumalo, has opened a fraud case against former President Jacob Zuma, and a luxury British registered yacht carrying 22 people has sunk in a sudden incident off the southern coast of Italy. Local reports say one person was killed and divers are searching for 6 people who are still missing. Details at 2 o'clock.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
All right, Dr. Michelle, as we continue our conversation, so you say as part of the study, it was found that comparing psychiatric diagnoses between those who use cannabis and those who did not, there was a significantly higher proportion of patients who use cannabis who had psychotic disorder, and a significantly higher proportion of patients who use cannabis post the ruling reported experiencing trauma and family conflict. Let's talk to us about sort of that direct connection between the brain development in those adolescent stages and, of course, the effects that cannabis would have, and maybe does that also speak to the usage and the dosages of cannabis?
Thank you for that question. So yes, so during that time in adolescence, the brain keeps developing, and this phase of development continues into early adulthood, up to the age of around about 25. And the structure changes, there's functional changes, and so that is quite a vulnerable time for our adolescents. And like I said, there is increasing evidence that does show that when adolescents use cannabis regularly, there can be more severe and negative outcomes. So, in terms of the cannabis itself, here we look at how often is the adolescent using cannabis? How many times a week, how many times a day, and then looking at what is the dose or the potency of the cannabis they are using. And all those factors plays a role in increasing the risk. So we think about risk and we think about all the factors that contribute. And some of the adolescents have pre-existing risk factors before the cannabis comes into play. For example, in their family. So that's why we looked at, you mentioned the trauma. Yes, we looked at family history. We looked at trauma history. So that included exposure to violence or physical abuse, neglect, etc. And those factors all contribute, and those factors also increase the risk to the vulnerable brain. And then that exposure to cannabis and looking at then the quantity of usage, how often they are using, and what that potency is. And all those together plays a big role.
Okay, all right. So context, I guess some would say context of the study will help us understand it a little bit better as well. Talk to us about, you mentioned potency and frequency and the various sort of social factors that are at play. What are what are we looking at? What did the study show by way of the long-term changes or the long-term effects within adolescence?
So, in terms of the long-term effects, so remember we looked at risk factors and then we looked at what diagnoses are. We didn't look at when these adolescents become adults. So if we look at further than that, that I cannot comment on this study. There has been a few other studies that have been done. So Dunedin study, the Swedish cohort study, these were large studies that were done in Europe. And these studies looked at cannabis and looked at people over long term and the development of psychotic disorders later on, for example, schizophrenia.
Yeah.
But those studies, those are studies we looked at, but that wasn't what my study was about. My study was looking at the adolescents that got admitted before the ruling, after the ruling, and what their diagnoses were, what were the changes in the cannabis usage, if there was more. And yeah, like I said, we did find more, and those were the predominant diagnoses that stood out: psychotic disorders and cannabis use disorders.
Did you, just by way of our final point, did you also perhaps, did the study consider maybe recommendations moving forward, especially if you were looking at sort of the effects, I guess, of cannabis before and after the ruling? Were there then recommendations that spoke to how one goes about safeguarding adolescents or managing the use of cannabis use amongst adolescents and matters around that?
Yes, so our recommendations were twofold. The one was looking at the existing adolescents who have mental illness and who have a cannabis use disorder, and looking at how can we assist them, and what they will require is programs that cater for them, which we call dual diagnosis programs. And this would assist to improve their outcomes. So if we're looking at long-term for these adolescents, that's what they would need to improve their outcome, and also to reduce their rate of rehospitalization. So to ensure that they don't keep getting readmitted into the services. This is obviously quite tricky, and it needs a lot of planning. It needs funding from the Department of Health. And so that was one of our recommendations. And the second part of it was, because cannabis use is increasing among the youth, and in our study we found amongst patients who have mental illness, we were looking at strategies and interventions so that there can be a reduction and a prevention of cannabis use in this group, so that we can reduce their health risks, and so also that we can reduce the disease burden.
Yeah.
This includes health promotion and education programs. And if we think about, okay, it's nice to say, but what does that mean? So looking at education programs that start at the school, because our adolescents, they are in school, majority of them. And so getting the school involved, where we can actually educate them on their level, at an age-appropriate level, engage our adolescents so that we can inform them about the risks and the effects of cannabis use. Getting their parents involved as well, because
the parents play such a big role, and having the parents have open conversations with their children about the dangers of cannabis use. I mean, also the next phase would be getting our communities involved so that outreach can be done, so that the word can spread. Because if it doesn't, we're not educating our adolescents. Our adolescents aren't going to know better, and they're going to think that there is no harm for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Michelle Schwartz, thank you so much for the time today. And Dr. Michelle is a specialist psychiatrist. That is how we close on this conversation. But our lines are open still on 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107. By the way, remember that we're giving away 8,800 Rand, not today, but we are giving away 8,800 Rand in celebration of our 88th birthday. And all you have to do is keep listening to the station 24/7. The various shows, will have their share of the pot to give away throughout the course of August. So you don't want to miss it. Last week, we actually gave away our first 8,800 Rand on this show to an unsuspecting listener. And I hope she used it quite selfishly for whatever her personal needs were. And it's very simple. You just have to listen out to the station. We have not made it difficult at all, and the respective show will cue you on said day, and then you just stick around near your phone. But we're not giving it away today. I'm just reminding you that we do have that competition running to celebrate our 88th birthday. Let's take a quick pause, and then we come back and we get into a conversation that's looking at, focus for entrepreneurs, really, 3 ways that businesses can support young employees in an involving work environment.
SA Women Struggles Journal. #Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAFM celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month, and we honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAFM in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So apparently millennials, which are aged 28 to 43 years old, and members of the Gen Z, currently between ages 12 and 27, have very different needs and expectations when it comes to the workplace. Very different from our older counterparts, the baby boomers. And by understanding what these unique characteristics are, employers can harness young people's predispositions for innovative thinking, as well as a new era creativity, and of course exploit our potential. I love how I keep putting myself there in the youth, but I'm firmly a millennial. Amogelang Montane joins us now, who is a human resource business partner at Business Partners Limited. How are you doing, Amogelang?
Hi, Bridget. Thank you so much for the invitation, and a good afternoon to your listeners.
Only but a pleasure. Okay, let's talk about this, because we've had these conversations. We are of very different generations when you compare baby boomers, sort of older millennials as well as younger millennials, can be like chalk and cheese. Before we even get into the nitty-gritties, how does a business then take into consideration the needs of really 3 very different cohorts of people?
I think the most important thing for a business is to understand the employees that they have at that particular given time. I think most businesses misuse the opportunity to collaborate young employees as well as those that are much older and have much experience. So I think leveraging of those 2 can be beneficial for the organization and in bringing the impact that the organization wants to achieve overall.
I like that, Amukhlan, because I don't know, in the way I understand what you refer to as leveraging the two generations, it's almost it's an exchange of institutional knowledge and experience on the one hand, and perhaps some gung ho creative innovation on the other hand.
Correct. What's important here is to note that with the older generation, they provide the mentorship and the support. So they have the experience, so they are able to offer that. Younger employees come in with fresh mindset, innovative ideas. They are creative. They want to work smarter, and they want to find ways to do things quicker. So that collaboration helps. For instance, here at Business Partners, what we embrace is an open plan workspace where the older generation sits with the younger generation, and that collaboration assists in facilitating the growth and the mentorship, but also the innovative ideas come through as well.
By way of innovation, right? How do people effectively harness that? How do you effectively tap into your employees' innovative thinking and creativity, especially when we're talking specific to young people?
Two things come to mind when you say that, Bridget. One, open communication, encouraging young employees to share their ideas by creating a safe and open environment where all voices are valued. The second thing that comes into mind is just the autonomy, which is something that younger employees, a younger generation rather, are craving much coming into the workspace, empowering them by giving them ownership of projects and tasks and making them feel trusted in the process in them achieving the goal.
Is it easier said than done? Because as we talk about, tapping into that innovation, giving them autonomy, I'm also thinking when we're looking at Gen Z, this is quite a unique demographic of young people, right? Because we having quiet quitters amongst them. We have, and I no disrespect to any Gen Z listening to our conversation. We have there's a whole movement now where they don't want to use the thumbs up emoji because you are triggering them. So it seems to be a generation that is quite tricky to navigate and understand. And how do businesses even begin then to really understand them and get concise with what they want so that you can be responsive to it on the one hand, but also leverage on it on the other?
I think it's more about engaging. Employee engagement is a very important aspect within the employee life cycle. What's important is the more the organization engages the employees to understand what their needs are, to understand what drives them, then we are able to provide solutions or strategies around satisfying that craving or that need, creating a purposeful or meaningful workplace for the Gen Zs, for them to be able to find purpose and meaning in their job, because it's one of the things that has come up in a lot of articles, in a lot of research, as well as in our interactions with young employees and business partners. They crave for work that has more purpose and meaningful. They want to know how does what I'm doing now impact the world around me?
I mean, that's a difficult question. That is a difficult question. Is it easy for employees to sort of get to that understanding and help them get to the understanding of that purpose?
Two things come to mind when you say that as well. We need to, as organizations, integrate the purpose into onboarding. So at Business Partners Limited, what we do is that we have an induction day where all the new employees get to meet all the executives, and it's a fun day, and they get to share what each department is all about, but more importantly, sharing the vision and the mission of the company at an early stage. And by doing that, it helps employees know and understand how they fit in the bigger picture. And secondly, just involving them in purpose-driven projects that will enable them, projects where they can raise their hand up and say, I want to be involved in that project, involve them so that they can also get the fulfillment of the meaningful work that they want to do.
Yeah. So when you say, sort of getting them involved in the vision and the mission, I'm thinking this speaks to, there's that old saying of you need the buy-in. You need the buy-in of the people around you in order for you to be able to succeed in any mission. And I think that speaks to exactly it, right? They're not just employees. People who work with you, whether we're talking Gen Zs or whatever, they're not just employees. The sooner you get them on your side and in your dream and your goals, maybe the quicker you'll be able to see the success that you require as a business.
Sure. I think precisely that. I couldn't agree more.
All right. Let's talk also about, providing them with a clear career path, because you say this is one of the 3 ways that businesses can support young employees.
Yes. When it comes to that, I think it's providing a direction and a purpose through goal setting. So when you define a career path for young employees specifically, it helps them navigate and mentally be able to understand where they want to go to in a short term, long term. In fact, it also gives them the ability to understand how they can contribute during that time. Because I think a lot of young people not only want to know what growth trajectory is looking like for them, but how they can also contribute along the way. Enhancing job satisfaction is also important. The return on investment on this essentially, Bridget, is it reduces the turnover, because what we've seen is that young people are less tolerant than the older generation. So if they don't feel that they vibe with what the company is all about, or the mission, or the vision, then they are more easily drawn to leave the organization, whereas the older generation would stick it out and see how the long term goes. But I think here we're trying to retain them for as best as possible. It is quite hard, you could imagine, but there's a lot of competition, and after COVID came the battlefield of the greatest talent, and with the great resignation. So it's just about making sure that we retain them, and we do that by making sure that from the onset we set KPIs, we set career projection goals, career path, make sure that they're engaged at that level, so that they know and can contribute towards what they want to see out of the whole career life cycle at Business Partners, for instance.
I mean, we've run out of time, Amogelang, but every time we talk about these Gen Zs, I think it boggles the mind of most employers out there, because their generation, on the one side, they're conscious, they want to feel fulfilled, they want to know that they're working for a greater purpose, but they also seem a little bit impatient. And will quit on you in a drop of a hat, or silent quit, and have staged silent protests within your organization without you being none the wiser. But a fascinating generation nonetheless. We appreciate the time with you this afternoon. And that was Amogelang Montane, who's a human resource business partner at Business Partners Limited. It's just gone 10 to 2 o'clock. It's time for us to get into Kids Corner, and then we get into the 2 o'clock news with Utsile, rather, my apologies.
We can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
My name is Shulani Mavina. I am 10 years old. I learn in Parktown Public School. I feel good when I wear a uniform. I think it's important to wear school uniform so people cannot get in a wrong school. Wearing school uniform makes me feel happy. If I had a choice, I would choose wearing school uniform. Why? Because it makes me feel clever. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Basic Mate. I am 10 years old. If I had a choice, I think I would wear school uniform because it makes me neat. I think school uniform is the right choice to wear. If I could change my school uniform color, I will choose red and white because it's my favorite colors.
My name is Sipogazi Messi Mashabela. I am grade 5 and I am 10 years old. My school's name is Parktown Public School. Yes, I think it's important to wear our school uniform because it represents the school. And it shows that we have a bright future. If I had a choice, I would choose to wear my school uniform because it will save me a lot of time so that I can look like I am from this school. I wouldn't change the color at all because I love blue and I love my school so much. I'll still keep it blue, gray and white as it is. When we all look the same, it makes me feel safe about myself. And it makes everyone feel like they like to be part of the school. Usually, all of the teachers and the principal usually say we must follow the rules to wear the school uniform so that we can look like we are from Parktown Public School and to follow the code of conduct. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Uzila Mashia. I am 9 years old. I'm about to turn 10. The choice I could pick is wearing uniform because people sometimes laugh at you wearing wrong things that you're not supposed to wear. And I think uniform is important to know that this school is kind, knows the rules. Thank you.
My name is Leon. My surname is Ndlovu. I live in Piri. I learn in Pakistan in grade 6A. Honestly, I choose not wearing school uniform because I've noticed something about me. If it's like an event where I'm not wearing school uniform, I wake up a little bit earlier. But if it's like something usual days wearing uniform, I wake up later. I don't think school uniform is not important. I know it is important, but I just don't like wearing it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Owami and my surname is Ndlovu. I am 11 years old, turning 12 years next month. Yes, I do understand why we wear school uniform so that we can represent our school and because we follow the code of conduct. If I had a choice, I would choose wearing my school uniform because I do like wearing my school uniform. I think the good things about us wearing school uniform is so that we can all match, ma'am, so that it cannot be color blocking, so that people can see that, yeah, there's a lot of people wearing uniform of Parktown Public School. I think it's a good school. I think wearing school uniform is very helpful because it makes everyone feel included. It makes everyone feel as if yeah, we are all together right now. We are all wearing the same things. We're at the same place. We're learning in same classes. Not wearing different clothes. It will be color blocking, ma'am. And also making other people who can afford and not afford feel included.
Hello friends and happy Monday. To kick off our week, let's talk about school uniform. Wearing a school uniform is important because it promotes equality among students. When everyone is dressed alike, no one feels out of place or judged based on their clothing. School uniform ensures that all students look similar, allowing you to concentrate on your education rather than worrying about fashion or the pressure to wear expensive outfits. This creates a welcoming and equal school atmosphere where everyone feels included. Another benefit of wearing school uniform is that it saves time in the morning. You won't have to spend precious minutes deciding what to wear each day. Now this leads to less stress and more time for a nutritious breakfast, which is important for energy and focus in class. Additionally, school uniform can help your parents save money, since they don't need to buy a variety of clothes for school. School uniform also fosters school spirit and pride. When students wear the same attire, they feel like they are part of a team. It serves as a reminder that they represent their school, encouraging good behavior and hard work. Wearing the school colors and logo can instill a sense of pride and strengthen connections among classmates. Lastly, school uniforms enhance safety. When everyone is dressed the same, it's easier to identify who belongs to the school community. This makes it safer for students, as teachers and staff can quickly spot anyone who shouldn't be there. Overall, wearing school uniform helps us as students to focus on our studies, feel a sense of belonging, and stay safe while at school. Now from today, wear your school uniform with pride.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 107 FM in Kroonstad. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Top stories at 2 o'clock. KZN Police Commissioner confirms suicide of a Presidential Protection Unit member, and Parliament receives Shivambu's resignation letter. Good afternoon. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has confirmed that a member of the Presidential Protection Unit, whose vehicle was involved in a hit and run on Friday, has committed suicide this morning. A female pedestrian, Pumla Mchali, was killed along the Phoenix Highway. The state vehicle was later found abandoned in a sugarcane field after it was reported stolen by the officer. The police officer, whose name has not yet been disclosed, was seconded to the Royal Protection Unit tasked with safeguarding members of the AmaZulu royal household. Mkhwanazi says the state vehicle was not authorized to be used at the place and time that the hit and run took place. He says as police were following up various leads, the officer then called his brother to confess and then committed suicide.
So among some of the investigation we're doing there was to touch DNA in the vehicle, to check whose DNA was there in the steering wheel that was driving that car at the time before we find it. That is one. Two, we had to do many other leads to try and see who was in that crime scene of the hit and run when it happened, which phones were there, who was communicating whoever in that area, and also the tracking devices on vehicles that we have.
The expelled founding member of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, Jabulani Khumalo, has opened a fraud case against former President Jacob Zuma. He says he pressed charges after realizing that he was fraudulently removed as a director and founder of the party. Khumalo elaborates on what happened during his removal as the director.
On the 8th, I received an email from CIPC saying that there is an attempt of change of directors in the NPC of Umkhonto weSizwe, which I'm the director and the founder. There was no consent that was requested from me to sign. They changed my email address from the biz portal of the CIPC. Then they changed my number. In the actual fact, what they did on the number is the same number, but the last two numbers, they put 00 so that they can be able to get the opt so that they can put it on the biz portal. That's how they removed me.
Parliament says it has received the resignation letter from former EFF MP Floyd Shivambu. Last Friday, Shivambu announced his resignation from the party and his deployment to Parliament. He will join the MK party as an ordinary member. Parliament's spokesperson Moloto Motapo says Shivambu's resignation is effective from the 16th of this month. The Department of Health says it remains on high alert as it continues to closely monitor Mpox cases in the country. To date, South Africa has recorded a total of 24 cases. 12 of these cases were reported in Gauteng, 11 in KwaZulu-Natal and 1 in the Western Cape. 3 deaths have been recorded thus far, with 19 recoveries, and 2 active cases are still undergoing home isolation. Spokesperson for the department, Foster Mohale, says at this stage there's no need for the public to panic.
The Department of Health would like to assure members of the public that the current Mpox outbreak remains under control in the country. However, that does not mean people should become complacent, as we have learned during COVID-19 pandemic that viruses are unpredictable as they mutate from time to time. The country remains on high alert in case of surge in Mpox cases and emergence of new contagious strains.
And finally, further afield, a luxury British registered yacht carrying 22 people has sunk in a sudden incident off the southern coast of Italy. Local reports say 1 person was killed and divers are searching for 6 people still missing. The rest of the multinational passengers and crew were taken to hospital. The Italian Coast Guard said the 56-meter-long yacht was struck by a violent storm at sunrise off the Sicilian capital, Palermo. There are reports it may have been swamped by a waterspout. Recapping the top story, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has confirmed that a member of the Presidential Protection Unit whose vehicle was involved in a hit-and-run on Friday has committed suicide this morning. For SAFM News, I'm Utsila Saku. Headlines at 2:30.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. You can get a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. Your car may be old, but driving without insurance is a risk every time you're on the road. Don't take the gamble. Outsurance Essential is affordable insurance for older cars, giving you up to 1 million rand liability cover and loads more. Plus, claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years and valued at under 125,000 and not financed. SMS car to 43187 or call 0800 60,000 today. Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
Every day, our children are exposed to relentless marketing of unhealthy foods where they live, learn and play. This aggressive marketing of unhealthy foods to children can shape their eating habits and food preferences for the rest of their lives. I'm your host, Crystal Alderson. Is Big Food stalking our children? Watch Chew on This on healer.org on Thursday, 15th August at 3 p.m.
Feel Good Fridays just got even better with a brand new Espresso newsletter, the Feel Good Fix. Delivered to your inbox every Friday, it is your weekly dose of joy, entertainment, and local flair. Subscribe now at expressoshow.com and never miss a moment.
From heartwarming stories to tasty recipes, it's all there waiting for you. And remember to tune in to the Espresso Morning Show weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on S3, and let's start your day right and channel your inner feel good.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Sithandwa sami kuba ngathi awubona uthando lwami ngelinye ixesha sithandwa sami ngiba ngazama awubona umzamo wami kodwa xa ngekho phambi kwakho uyayazi kuba njani na kuba xa ungekho phambi kwam ngiyayazi kuba njani kum uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndingalali ebusuku usakhumbula uba kukwizithembiso esazenzayo phambi komfundisi nabantu kuba wawuthe uzaba nami noma kunjani ebuhleni nasemubini ndiyamangala xa izaba nguwe lo ufuna uhamba ufuna uthatha into zakho ugoduke ndiyamangala xa izaba nguwe lo ufuna ugoduka ngenxa yabantu engenamali uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndingalali ebusuku uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndingalali ebusuku yeyani lemibuzo ndinayo ngawe yeyani na kutheni ndizibuza lemibuzo kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndingalali ebusuku uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndizibuze imibuzo uyenza kwintliziyo yam uyenza ndingalali ebusuku.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation now with author and leadership consultant with Gibbs Business School, Dr. Ngao Mutse, and we're talking around building a psychologically safe space in the workplace, primarily for women in leadership. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Mutse?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Bridget. How are you? And thanks for having me.
Thank you for the time. Much appreciated. So, let's get into it. Workplace bullying, you suggest through your work that is becoming an increasingly pervasive issue, but it's still a challenge in being addressed, and also challenge in identifying and defining rather. Maybe let's start there. By way of definition, help us understand what actually constitutes concise bullying in a work environment.
Thank you so much. Before I get to that, maybe just to say that one of the reasons it is proving to be difficult, or it's proving to be confusing for many people, is that there is a fine line between bullying and other forms of negative acts at work, such as sexual harassment, discrimination, microaggression. And the reason why that is the case is that some of those acts, for example, intimidation, aggression, forms part of what workplace bullying is. However, having said that, there are certain features and things that make bullying different from those other negative acts at work. Take, for example, sexual harassment. For sexual harassment, a single event can be construed as sexual harassment, as long as the person feel that they are being harassed. Whereas with workplace bullying, part of the complication is that for you to be certain that what is actually happening is bullying, is that it happens over a period of time. It's repeated over a period, and it refers to persistent or ongoing nature of behavior that is harmful to the target. The underlying word being harmful, and there are many other ways that you can define that. For example, for the first time in South Africa, we have a legal framework that defines what bullying is, and this is in the form of the Code of Good Practice for the Prevention and Elimination of harassment in organizations. So what the code does is that it locates bullying within the context of harassment, and it defines it as behavior that impairs dignity. So any behavior that impairs dignity is understood to be bullying. And we could get into lots of conversation on what kind of that behavior might look like. And some of those behavior that constitute bullying are, for example, abusive, insulting, offensive language or comments towards a target, even gossip and spreading of misinformation or malicious rumors, and even sometimes jokes. Those are some of the behavior that's constituted as bullying, including emotional outbursts, belittling and demeaning and undermining. And with that, the key feature being that this is behavior that's repeated over a period of time.
I guess it's about as concise as we can possibly get in that, right? It doesn't leave any room for ambiguity once you sort of list through the characteristic of behaviors that impair one's dignity.
Absolutely correct. And One of the other things or the complexities of bullying is that it can also be very, very subtle. Some of the behaviors can be so subtle that it leaves the target actually wondering what is actually happening. What is this bullying or is it not? For example, some of the behaviors that are bullying behaviors that are subtle include being excluded or marginalized, and withholding of vital information for effective performance. For example, I'm a project manager. And for me to be effective in my work, I need access to certain information. I need access to certain people. I need access to certain meetings. But I'm not invited in those meetings, and I do not have all vital information is withheld. Sometimes it can be as nuanced and as subtle as being refused access to training or promotion opportunities, irrespective of whether or not, even when you are performing and there's evidence that you actually might be due for promotions or should have access to the training. The key also being that this behavior is inconsistent. In other words, the behavior towards targets is very different to how other employees are being engaged with.
Now, by way of the subtle forms of workplace bullying, Dr. Mutse, how do then employers and employees, I guess, become a little bit more attuned to whether or not the subtle forms are in fact bullying?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, the two ways I'm going to answer your question. One is each one of us, our bodies actually give us information. When something is being said to you or is being done to you that makes you uncomfortable or that makes you feel disrespectful, you actually feel it. You know, your body gives you the information. That's the first part. But the other is that the onus still is on the employer to essentially define what bullying is, what bullying means for that organization, and you do that through by putting in place specific anti-bullying policies. And part of once you have put those is defining exactly what it is that constitutes bullying here in this organization. Therefore, this is the behavior that is not going to be condoned, and be as specific as possible so that when something is happening, that behavior is being meted to anyone, to the employee, they would immediately recognize and they would know. Also, in the same way as bystanders, I talk about bystanders who are people that are neither the abrasive leaders that bully or target, but they witness the bullying that happens. And often bystanders never know what to do because they may not be sure themselves that actually what is happening is bullying. This is why it's important for employers, for leaders to put in place policies, processes, and to identify bullying, one, and also to report it when it happens.
Now, you've written a book in Building Psychologically Safe Spaces, and of course it is Women's Month, and we're looking at what these safe spaces primarily might look like for women in leadership as well as women in various sort of levels within an organization. Talk to us about, just some of those key actions then that one can effectively promote to create these psychologically safe spaces.
One of the things I propagate is that actually wonderful things happen when women support one another. And yet what tends to happen, which is also true, is that there are so many instances of women within organizations. Some people talk about the queen bee syndrome, where if I'm the first one, I essentially kick the ladder so that nobody else must come up, and that behavior is very, very destructive. So one of the things that I propagate, and I also write about it in the book, that I have had such support from specific women that I mentioned, that had it not been for their support, probably I would not have. It's not that my path was smoother, because it wasn't smooth, because I was bullied, and unfortunately the person that bullied me also happened to be a woman. But at the same time, I had other women that supported me and assured me and almost like provided me with a foundation that it is actually possible, and it is not just possible, but it makes business sense for women to support one another, because I think studies upon studies have shown that organizations, companies that are led by women tend to be much more productive, because women, there is just something about women and how women lead, which is inclusive, which encourages everyone to be the best versions of themselves. And when one is the best version of themselves, they tend to go the extra mile. So this is particularly in August, in Women's Month, this is the gospel that I really want to be preaching. And I have lots of empirical evidence to support that, is that when women support one another, powerful and very great things happen. So it's important for us to build each other up, to build one another up, and to lead as women. One of the things that I always speak about is that leadership is an expression of who we are. The best way for anybody to lead, and for any woman to lead, is to lead from who they are. And women leaders tend to lead differently, more authentic, more sympathetic, more attuned to the direct environment. So it's important for us to support one another and to shape the kind of work environment that we would want everybody to succeed in.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely, I think, what you've just shared definitely speaks to the elements of support and leadership. And then I guess others might go, well, what else should we then bundle into that basket of tools, especially if you are in a situation where maybe the bullying element is directly linked to the leadership element? Is there another sort of consideration as to how we can go about creating this, psychologically safe space that doesn't necessarily come from the leadership instruction, just in case the leader is the problem?
One of the things that where the leader is a problem, and in the context of bullying, more often than not, leaders are the problem, and the problem is the problem of abrasive leadership style, where managers and leaders, to get results out of people, they've got to quote unquote drive them to the ground. So I think one of the first things that we can do that ought to be done is to offer. One of the ways that I really believe in is raise these leaders' level of self-awareness. And because, again, in working with abrasive leaders that bully, I have come to realize that many actually are not that highly self-aware, or their level of emotional intelligence is not that high, in the sense that they are not fully aware of how their way of being, their way of leading, how they show up, impact the direct environment. So one of the interventions could be coaching. For example, I trained and qualified as a coach that specializes in working with abrasive leaders. So there's a specific methodology, a specific way that I work with the leaders that raises the awareness around the impact they have on the negative impact they have on the direct environment. All you need is for a leader to, once they become aware, actually make a decision, because everything is a decision. Actually decide whether this is the way I want to be viewed, whether this is a leader that I want to be. And once a leader, when that level of awareness, they get that level of awareness and decide this is not the way I want to be viewed, then there is hope. That's when I really know that we can actually do something. We can do something about it, because all of these, the abrasiveness is behavior based.
Yeah, Dr. Mutse, we have to leave it there for this afternoon. But thank you so much for the time. Unfortunately, we fast run out of minutes. That was Dr. Mutse, author and, of course, leadership consultant with the Gibbs Business School. Let's get into a ad break, and then we'll come back on the other side with the headline news. Utsile standing by with the 2:30 headline news, and then we'll come back and get into another conversation celebrating the rise of women in South Africa's restaurant industry.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
City 3, West Ham 1.
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own half? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
It's just gone 2:30. It's time for us to get into the news headlines.
And in the headlines at 2:30, Advocate Dalimpofu has argued at the High Court in Pretoria that former Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane is entitled to her multi-million rand gratuity. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has confirmed that a member of the Presidential Protection Unit whose vehicle was involved in a hit and run on Friday has committed suicide. And state prosecutor in the Pastor Mboro case, Pello Vilagazi, says the safety of the state witnesses will be compromised if Mboro and the other two accused are released on bail. Pastor Paseka Mutening, together with his son and bodyguard, are appearing at the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court today, facing charges of kidnapping, assault, intimidation and contravention of the Dangerous Weapons Act. Details at 3 o'clock.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We continue celebrating Women's Month, and we're highlighting inspiring figures who are making significant strides in their fields. And today we're talking to a trailblazer, Zunia Butcher-Meyers of Avantier Estate Restaurant that Zunia is in partnership with. And she's going to tell us all about her fabulous story. And of course, being an entrepreneur in the restaurant sector can't be easy. How are you doing, Zunia? You good?
I'm very, very well, Bridget. Thank you so much for having me and our beautiful restaurant on your program. We're really excited to be here.
No, it's only but a pleasure. Let's get familiar. Let's find out a little bit more about yourself. Have you always innately had a passion and a love for food?
Well, let's put it this way. I've always loved eating. So I think that's where my passion grew. But to be real, I've always loved cooking. And I'm first and foremost an artist. And I think the nice thing about being a chef is you get to eat your art.
Yes. And this was something, if first and foremost an artist, then I wonder, and a love for eating, but it doesn't always translate to all of us getting into the restaurant world and the restaurant business. How did you find yourself getting into the space?
Yeah. I was very lucky. I'm one of those people that tends to meet the right people at the right time, and I've always loved being a baker. That's probably my first passion. My first love is pastries and desserts, and I met my business partner in I think 99, and we started the restaurant in 2002 on the beautiful Avantier Estate. And she is a trained midwife. I'm a trained artist, and the two of us have created magic together over 22 years. So I'm trained, and neither is she. We are both self-taught. Yeah.
Very interesting. I love the pivot of a midwife. My brain can grasp an artist getting into the culinary art of life, but a midwife then completely pivoting and coming into the space. And what was it like for you guys, at the beginning stage, just sort of coming together, conceptualizing this business, and obviously getting it off the ground?
We were very lucky that the owner of the farm, the late Mr. Tony Tabra, really believed in a vision of a restaurant on the estate and backed us 100%. We really have the most beautiful relationship with the owners of the farm now. His beautiful sons that have inherited the estate, who we work in a beautiful symbiotic relationship with. How we started off was very much what did we want to cook? What do we love to do? And for us, food must have so many different elements. It must be beautiful. You eat with your eyes, but it doesn't help if your food is beautiful, but it doesn't follow through to the taste. So the food needed to be, flavorsome, big flavors and hearty portions. We've also always said, what's the point of having a beautiful meal, but you go past McDonald's on your way home? So for us, it's very important that all the little boxes have been ticked. We like to use local. We're on the Cape Winelands, so we're surrounded by everything that we could possibly want. We're very lucky. We really are in terms of where we are situated.
Zunia, true to the sentiment of you've always loved food, because as somebody who loves food myself, Nothing will make me not return to an establishment more than having to stop at a McDonald's and get something to fill me up after I've had, a beautiful experience in a lovely setting, in a beautifully decorated restaurant and establishment. The food is just wonderful for Instagram. It tastes good, but the portions leave the hole in the stomach.
Yeah. You know what, Bridget, we work hard for our money, every one of us, and there's nothing worse than feeling ripped off. There are restaurants that will charge you for the potatoes, the chips, the veg. So it just adds up, and before you know it, you're spending a lot of money. And I think we work very hard to make our money, and it's very easy to just let it go. So you want to know that it was worth it.
Absolutely. No, it's not the world's easiest sector to be in. I'm fortunate to call some of South Africa's top restaurateurs and chefs friends, and I know that it's not an easy space to make a success out of. And what have been some of the challenges for yourself and your partner Melanie, along the road and along the journey, and how have you ladies overcome while still ensuring that the business grows, you keep innovating, and of course you also keep up with all the trends that come with being in the space?
Well, what's very interesting is out of the 30 top restaurants nominated for the Mercedes-Benz Eat Out Awards, out of the 30, only 4 were women. And if you look globally, or in America, only 3% or 7% of the workforce that are chefs are women. And in South Africa, our percentage is a little higher. It's 13. So being a chef it's a calling.
Yeah.
You don't become a chef because it's something to do. You do it because you love to do it. Because if you think you're going to do it because it's something to do, it's going to break you. It is really not for the faint-hearted, and it's hard work.
Yeah.
If you have to ask me what's my advice to a young chef, get good shoes. Sleep as much as you can, because it's physical and it's long hours and you have no social life. Yeah. So it's a calling. It really is, and you have to love what you do. And it's such an interesting world, because there are times that you are so busy, especially with us in the Cape Winelands, that you are not sure, what your front is and what your back is. And then it just dies, and then it's dead, and then you're not sure what to do with yourself. So you have to be able to work within the parameters of what the industry is, and you have to be realistic. It's hard work. It's not for sissies.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to manage time, and you have to be self-aware, and you have to be autonomous. You have to be able to lead yourself. And you need to be able to take good direction, because it's teamwork. I'm only as good as the last plate of food that we've sent out, and I'm only as good as the team that is behind me. And you have to be able to work as a team. It's the most wonderful, it becomes a family. Because you work under such pressure, you work with such intensity, it becomes a dance. When you're very busy, you know how to move around each other.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky. I work with a kitchen of women. I've got one guy who works with us part-time.
Yeah.
And both my son and Melanie's son Melanie's son's still busy, but they are on their way to becoming chefs themselves. So, that's one of the things that does draw a lot of people, is the connection that you have within that space. It's very different.
I love the fact that you went straight into the advice for young chefs, because I have a young niece who's just graduated culinary school and returned back from a 1-year sort of work program in the US, and I've just placed her with Chef Wandi at La Creative And on day one, she sent us a message to say, this is hard. This is very, very hard. But I think it's very important for young people, especially if you want to function at those levels of excellence in an already competitive space. And as you point out, just from the restaurant, awards, that it's such a marginal number of women that are penetrating the space and finding success at those levels. It's very important for young female chefs specifically to know what is required to succeed at that level of excellence.
What was very interesting is when my son graduated last year and we were at the awards ceremony, out of the 15 awards that were given, or however many, I can't remember the exact amount, 10 of those went to girls. And it was so amazing to see how these women had stepped up, because they already because he studied at Silwood, they're already being placed in industry, they're already experiencing what it's like. And it was just one girl after the next getting, winning the best of this, best of that. So it was very exciting to see. And it'll be very exciting to see where they end up.
Absolutely. As we wind down on our conversation, let's talk about some of the support as well that you ladies have gotten by way of family, by way of other partners, and of course the importance of that support to be provided to younger chefs, younger restaurateurs.
I'm very lucky that my business partner is 100% has my back, and vice versa. I wouldn't have been able to do what I do or her without us supporting each other. It's really important that you have a family that supports you and understands that at Christmas you're not going to be at home. You might probably miss most of the birthdays, because you are creating those experiences for other people at the cost of you not experiencing them yourself, and that's a very hard one to swallow, and that can make you very sad, if you miss a wedding or whatever. But that is the nature of the business, and your support is vital. Either mentorship, friendship, and family, absolutely, and of course, whatever your higher power is, it's really good to be able to draw on your faith.
Absolutely. Zunya, thank you so much for the time. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. The next time, I'm around Stellenbosch, I'm definitely going to swing by for a meal and a conversation.
Awesome.
That was Zunya. I don't get around that side of the world very often, but when I do, I'll definitely come by. That was Zunya Butcher Mayers, co-founder of Avantier Estate Restaurant. It looks amazing. We were busy scrolling as we were talking, scrolling through the menu and the price pointing. I love it when restaurants give you good, fine dining and also, cost-effective pricing, so that you're not going there and paying an arm and a limb and leaving your entire month's salary to enjoy fine dining. You can still manage to put petrol in your car and go and enjoy a great meal at the establishment. Let's take a quick break and then we come back and we wrap up our show.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Tamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars. Only on S3. Open up.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, for our final conversation now, we are catching up with Tina Chita, who is an entrepreneur specializing in digital marketing. And we're looking at, just rebranding, the art of rebranding yourself. That can be a very interesting journey, I think, for an individual. Good afternoon to you, Tina. How are you?
Bridget, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Can't complain. Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it. I mean, it can be exciting, right? When someone decides that I want to rebrand, I want to reposition myself. Exciting on one end, but I can also imagine that maybe a little bit daunting and, anxiety-inducing on the other.
Absolutely, I was going to use very similar adjectives. Very exciting, yet very scary. But yeah, I love new beginnings, and I feel like rebranding is a really beautiful way to start a new beginning and a new chapter.
Yeah, is that the secret to it? Perhaps the embracing of the new and the potential that lays there.
Yes, I do think embracing the newness and trying to free yourself from limitations is something that really brings you closer to your potential. Just trying to break down the limiting beliefs that you might have about yourself and about your life. I think those are some of the things that can bring you closer to being able to successfully rebrand and be confident through the process.
Now, let's talk or maybe let's rewind it back, because, there was a time when the word branding or I'm a brand, and the phrase I'm a brand was quite the buzz thing socially and even professionally. Let's talk about when we're looking at professional rebranding, what are we speaking to here? Like, what is the essence of professionally rebranding oneself?
I do agree with you, Bridget. It can sound like quite a buzzword. I'm a brand this, brand that. But I do think being able to build a lasting brand and a memorable brand is a very powerful thing. Because once you familiarize yourself with a brand and you start to trust that brand, there's very limited that brand. There's very little that brand can't do after that. If you look at people who are in social media and this digital marketing space, for example, the people whom I have noticed that I've been observing are people who first create an authentic, very strong brand, and then after that they start to present their business ideas. By then they've already built a community of people who already trust them, trust their opinion, and who are willing to invest in them because they already believe in the brand, even before seeing the product or the service.
Yeah. So you talk about authenticity, right? Building an authentic brand that people can buy into and believe in. And then you also talk around fearlessness being the mother of reinvention. How do we bring those two together?
All right. Fearlessness is the mother of reinvention is definitely my favorite quote, and it's a quote by Ariana Huffman. And it just speaks to what we spoke about earlier on, that embracing the new, embracing a change, it does take courage and fearlessness, right? And then when we bring that closer now to authenticity, it's not always easy to be authentic, because you see different examples of success all around you all the time. And it's easy for you to try and blend into that or try and fit into the mold because you're just trying to follow a specific template to success. But when you start to embrace your own uniqueness and you lean more into your passions and your loves and things that come naturally to you, I think those are the things that build authentic lasting and memorable brands. Being able to identify with the brand, not because it's expensive or luxurious or anything like that, but because it speaks to me. It's such a unique and authentic brand, and I think that's what people buy into. They're not necessarily buying into maybe the material of a bag, but they're actually buying into the brand and what that brand means. That brand might mean class, sophistication, elegance, and that's what you're actually looking for rather than the actual tangible product.
And when one reinvents oneself, right, when one is rebranding, Tina, are we supposed to then approach it from a 360 perspective? In the sense that it's not just about changing your image, but there's other things maybe that you should be considering if you are rebranding, repositioning yourself.
Absolutely. I think it is a lot more than what is on the surface. It's not a cosmetic makeover. It's usually a deep transformation where the brand kind of outlines their values, outlines their priorities when it comes to their consumers and what they try to give their consumers or what message they're trying to communicate. So it's not for me. It's not just about the look and feel of it. You can always change the look and feel of your logo, but for me, rebranding is a more holistic transformation. To start from the why and start from the beginning. Like, why are you doing this? What is it fulfilling? And who are you trying to reach with this brand? And that for me always makes the communication between the brand and the consumer authentic. I feel like now I'm really using the word, but authentic and real, and consumers these days, especially Gen Zs and I'd say millennials as well, are always challenging brands. They're always challenging brands on their values, and also challenging brands on their impacts on society and their standpoints on societal issues, So brands can't just change the color and the tone and the Pantone anymore for people to buy into it. They really need to speak to their consumers through their values and through they actually prioritize in the business.
So it's not enough to just be superficial about it. It's not enough to just change the look and feel or the logo or without actually getting down to the crux of who you are, because you say you got to start with the why. And that why, as you went on to point out, speaks to also the messaging and the value behind that why. Is there room in rebranding for either individuals or even entities to misstep? Where you think perhaps you've nailed down and drilled down on the why, and then you sort of go on this rebrand exercise only to then realize that it doesn't resonate, or in a personal perspective, it's not bringing the return on investment that you had hoped it would bring?
For me, as scary as what you just described is, I also see opportunity in that, because for me, that is what the beauty of rebranding is. Just going back to the why and going back to the drawing board as many times as you feel like you need to. I like the fact that you touched on personal branding as well, because I feel like as people, we don't realize how powerful it can be to transform your own self and reinvent your own self. So it's even before you get to career or entrepreneurship or mentoring other people, inspiring, or whatever it is you're called to do. I think it's such an important place to start within. So if you need to do that a few times, I don't think that is a problem. It might be daunting at first when you think about it, but I'd like to think of that as a process of refinement, because you get to see what works for your consumer and for yourself. and then you're just like, okay, let's make a tweak here, let's make a tweak there. And that's, for me, is what the beauty of reinvention is. And that's where the fearlessness needs to come from as well, and start as well, because it's not easy to start over. In anything, whether it's business or your life, your health, anything like that, starting over is most of the time easier said than done, which is why you need to channel your courage and your determination. And that's why I always go back to the why as well. The why you're doing this should be something that motivates you, even when it gets hard, even when you get knocked down by your consumers and they're just like, this doesn't resonate with us. You should be able to go back to your why and be able to start again. And that's for me. It is scary, and it is a process. But I see the opportunity and the beauty in that.
And would it be prudent to also listen to feedback? From a business entity perspective, listen to what your consumers are saying and be responsive to that, to their suggestions, to their concerns, and on a personal perspective, perhaps yield the advice of your counsel, whoever you entrust with your growth professionally and personally, yield the advice that they give to you as counsel.
Another scary term, and I think it's a trigger word for some, feedback. Feedback can be really hard to take in, but in business, in growth, in general, whether it's your personal growth, personal development, whatever it may be, feedback is really important, because as we were discussing the previous question, that process of refinement requires feedback, because you need to know what your consumers like, you need to know what works. And you will also be receiving advice from other departments or other places where you seek advice and counsel, maybe from your finance department. And they tell you that, you know what, Bridget, this idea that you love so much is actually running your business at a loss, And those are the type of things that you need to consider. Yes, you need to be connected to whatever it is you're selling or you're offering your audience, but there's other factors to be considered. So feedback holistically is definitely, or 360 feedback is definitely something that's really key in business, as I said. But in our personal lives as well, and whatever changes or progress you're trying to make in your personal development requires feedback. Very necessarily.
Absolutely. When we were having this conversation, there was a bank that rebranded a few years ago, and the slogan that they were using at the time, or the word that they had innovated at the time, just didn't resonate. I see they quietly released that quietly without making a big deal out of it, and then rebranded themselves with a brand new slogan last year sometime, which has found resonance with people. I'm not going to say which bank, I'm just going to say that they are primary color. Tina, thank you so much for the time this afternoon, and of course the advice. I'm sure a lot of folks, as they gear up for their own personal and professional assessments heading to the end of the year, they've taken some advice from you, rather, that can be rather useful in their journeys moving forward. That was our guest, Tina Chita, who is an entrepreneur specializing in digital marketing. That is us for this afternoon. Ashraf Gada is coming through with his team 3 until 6 o'clock. They're going to keep you company on the National Pulse. I'm pretty sure that last week's conversations are still hot on your agenda for today as well. Inshallah, God willing, though, my team and I will be back tomorrow.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning,